That's Edie Adams along with Bob Hope and a song called The Flip Side. Right here on the Vintage Rock and Pop Shop, Bob Hope is one of many celebrities who appeared on the Here's Edie TV show, later known as the Edie Adams Show. And it's not just Bob, it's Alan Sherman, Soupy Sales, Johnny Mathis, Duke Ellington. The list goes on and on. All of these shows are now out and available for the first time ever on DVD. And our guest today is Josh Mills, son of Edie Adams, to talk about this project. Josh, how did this all come about?
Well, my mom, Edie Adams, passed away in 2008, and at that time I basically took over the library of Kovacs and Edie Adams material, and at that time somebody had come to a Shout Factory and wanted to know about the Ernie Kovacs stuff, so it seemed like the logical place to start. After we had sort of taken care of that and released 2 sets of Ernie Kovacs box sets and a greatest hits sort of thing, we started working on my mom's DVD set, and essentially, my mom spent so much time preserving, Ernie's work literally from the mid-1960s onward, that her stuff really sort of took a back seat. And for years, she would kind of, when I was in school and, or in high school or even in college, she'd say, like, well, take a look at this show, or what do you think? And, I would always think it was pretty cool, but at the same time, I was, 17, 18, thinking about other things. When I started to watch these again, I saw my mom singing with Duke Ellington and my mom with Sammy Davis Jr. or Bobby Darin, it was almost blowing my mind just to think that I have a record of my mother doing some really cool stuff. And I thought, people probably would want to see this. So that's how it happened.
What condition was the video in?
They were all really good. I think there was one show that we didn't have the master for, but we had some dubs. And that was the only one that we had to kind of go back to, not the original source. But when we met with, there's some good folks at, it's called the CBS Videotape Archive, and they were friendly with my mom. And when it came time to transfer these, I took it to them, and they did a fantastic job of, fixing things like warbles in sound, or if there was a glitch in the tape. And, we're talking about, 50-year-old videotape. And they did a really great job to the point where, I had probably about 10 or 15 things I wanted changed. They pretty much got them all. And, we're not the I Love Lucy franchise, so we don't have a gazillion dollars to pour into restoration, but we did what we could, and they did a fantastic job.
It's just amazing. You mentioned the guests on the show, and it's almost like your mom, I don't know, opened up her Rolodex, and anybody she called said yes, because, these are like the biggest names in entertainment history on this program.
Yeah, my mom, when she was doing this was not too long. It was within the same year that Ernie had passed away, and she was very much under the gun to bring in some money because the IRS and others were definitely interested in making sure that that happened.
Right.
But at the same time, my mom really, I think, saw an opportunity to create her own show because the good folks at Consolidated Cigar Corporation, which did Muriel cigars for my mom and Dutch Masters for Ernie, bought airtime, and my mom had done commercials, was doing commercials for them, and they were not concerned about ratings. They were concerned about selling cigars. So they went to ABC and said, for Ernie's Take a Good Look or his ABC shows or things like that, would you want to sell us some airtime? And ABC was like, great, we can cover our nut, and we don't have to worry about ratings either. So as long as Muriel was selling cigars, they let her do anything, and that's why she had, choral groups, and she had everything from Spike Jones and Alan Sherman to, Sammy Davis Jr. and Bobby Darin to Duke Ellington and Count Basie. So it really was like a way for her to be creative because there was no pressure to not be creative. So it was great.
And we're glad you're doing this because a lot of these performances, not just your mom's performances on the show, but all of these acts we would never have seen, had it not been for this DVD set. And by the way, it's the entire run, right? All 21 episodes?
Exactly. It alternated weeks with Sid Caesar had a show, and it ran over almost 2 years, but it was 21 shows. It's all the shows. We had a lot of bonus material, but the thing that really is amazing, and you can say this, I can say this, for easily, is that it's literally never been seen since it was broadcast. There maybe was one show that was repeated, I think, once, but everything else, and you would have had to have seen that in 1963.
Right.
It's never been on DVD. It's never been on television. There's never been clips of it. So it's really, a treasure trove of some great jazz and a lot more.
Now, I have to ask you, and this will be sort of an awkward question, I suppose, but at what age did you realize that for men of a certain age, your mom was like a sex symbol? Guys would go bananas over your mother.
Yeah, I'm in my 40s now, so I can talk about this stuff. When, I always knew my mom, I always just thought of her as my mom, and, she literally was the woman that worked at my, the stand at my Little League games, and,
Sure.
She was just as much of a mom as anyone else. But there were a few times where, my mom once sang the national anthem at a Boston Red Sox game, and I was all excited because, I got to go to a game for free, and, they treated us great, and I got signed baseballs, and I was all excited. But I was probably about 14, maybe 15 or 13 or something like that, and there were some guys behind us going, Edie Adams, boy, was she, blah, 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 and I just was like, oh, my goodness, that is my mother. So I did have a few of those moments, and I was a little more, indignant in those days, and now it's just like, yeah, she was a good-looking lady, I can say that. She was my mom, okay.
That's one of several Muriel cigar commercials that Edie Adams made famous, and I should mention that one of the bonus features on the Here's Edie DVD set is a selection of those Muriel cigar commercials. And I believe, Josh, we're speaking to Josh Mills, son of Edie Adams, I believe your mom kind of put Muriel back on the map. At
the time, Muriel was kind of like a cigar that was on its way out, and it really wasn't selling very well. And their whole thing was to just do for Muriel what Ernie did for Dutch Masters and make it sophisticated. But at the same time, my mom was a good-looking lady, but she did it with a wink. She was very much a part of trying to create those, too.
Now, when you watch these episodes of Here's Edie, are you able to compartmentalize? In other words, are you able to separate Edie Adams, the performer, from Edie Adams, your mom?
Well, it's so funny because the thing that I notice on these things is, the timbre of her voice is the same voice that I knew at 2 and 15 and 25 and 35. Right. So, I hear my mom, so I'm very aware that it's my mom, purely not so much from how she looks, but more from her how she sounds. But at the same time, it was, it's so hard to see your mom in another way than just being your mother. But, I can definitely, if friends see it with me, they're always like, my God, she was so good, or this was such a great line, or this was such a good episode, or whatever. And it's kind of like I take a step back and say, yeah, that was my mom. Like, that's what, when I see her sitting on a piano singing with Duke Ellington, it just absolutely blows my mind because it's like, that's my mom,
So you can have a little bit of that objectivity and sit back and go, yeah, this is, setting aside that it's your mom, this is just a really good performance by a great entertainer.
Yeah, and and it's not just that. It's like there's one episode that's completely dedicated to bossa nova, and Stan Getz it could have been all Stan Getz, but it wasn't. And she really, one episode is her Vegas act, which I don't think there are many records of visual records of Las Vegas acts out there from the 1960s to the 1970s even. So there's definitely moments of clarity and moments of wow, that's my mom.
Right. What is coming down the line? Anything else? Obviously, this is the focus right now, but is there anything Ernie related, or maybe another Edie CD? Because obviously, we enjoyed the Christmas record.
Yeah, thank you. We're looking into. Well, there's one immediate thing is that I'm a big vinyl record collector, and there is a fabulous thing twice a year called Record Store Day, which is coming the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. Mm. And there's another one coming in April, but there is an Ernie Kovacs, Percy Dove Tonsils Christmas picture disc 10-inch that's limited to 1,000. that you can only get in stores on Record Store Day. So that's the the great thing that Omnivore Recordings does for us, and they're doing a great job. So that's the next one. And honestly, I'm looking to see if there's people that are interested in Ernie's books that he wrote, or my mom's autobiography, and potentially seeing if there's some television outlets, or there's a lot of different things to look into. But the DVDs were sort of, I think, the first on our plate. But yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Josh, for coming on and chatting about this. It's a great set, and as I mentioned to the audience, it's kind of like, think of the biggest stars you could think of in that time period. What is it, 62 to about 64?
Exactly correct. Yeah.
And they're all on this show, and of course, Edie's right out front singing her heart out. I mean, and there's sketches. I mean, it's a full-on variety show, in the best possible sense.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And being a local gal from that area, the Pennsylvania and New Jersey area, my mom would appreciate that. So thank you.